This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. So we're closing in on the end of Sefiras HaOmer. We're reaching the day that we've been anticipating. Sefiras HaOmer is such a unique mitzvah in the sense it's the only mitzvah that the entire mitzvah is preparation. We know there are many mitzvahs in the Torah, and all the mitzvahs require preparation. But to have a mitzvah that the entire mitzvah is just to prepare for something else, you see the importance of hachana, the importance of preparing for a mitzvah. The truth is, what are we even preparing for? Think about it. What are we preparing for? Shavuos. Well, what mitzvah do we have on Shavuos? There are no mitzvahs on Shavuos. Yeah, Bisman Shavuos Migdash Hayakayim, we brought a special carbon. We brought the Shtei Halechem. But Bisman Hazeh, there isn't even a mitzvah of doing anything on Shavuos. So what exactly are we preparing for? What is Shavuos? The answer is, the name speaks for itself. The Yom Tif of Shavuos means weeks. Meaning the Yom Tif is basically cashing in on what we've prepared for. So you see the importance of preparation. But in the Sefer Avodas Yisrael of the Machon Maggid, he has a beautiful remez. The David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Tzama nafshi le'elokim lekel chai. Masai avai ve'iraya pnei elokim. My soul thirsts for Hashem, the living God. When will I come and see pnei elokim, the face of Hashem? David HaMelech is expressing his yearning, his thirst to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, when will I have the opportunity to bask in the splendor of the Shekhinah? It certainly sounds like awaiting Shavuos. Sama nafshi le'elokim lekel chai, masai avai ve'iraya pnei elokim. So the Arizal says an amazing thing. Kel chai. Kel chai. Kel is 31, chai is 18, are the 49 days of Sefira. In other words, what is Sefira? Sefira is an expression of Sama nafshi le'elokim lekel chai. It's a thirst for the living God. Masai avai ve'iraya pnei elokim. When will I come and see the face of Hashem? That is what we are trying to engender within ourselves during the days of Sefira, this thirst, this yearning to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be zoiche, to achieve coming close to Hashem on Shavuos, Masai Avai Ve'ira Pnei Elokim. So I want to share with you a few ha'aras on understanding the quality of the days of Sefiras HaOmer. Number one, on Pesach, we drink how many cups of wine? 4 cups of wine. What do they correspond to? The 4 Lashonos of Geula, which most of us have been trained to think they are. V'hoitzesi, Hashem took us out. I will take you out. V'hitzalti, I'll save you. V'ga'alti, I'll redeem you. V'lakachti, and I'll take you as a nation. The Gra says that's absolutely wrong. It's incorrect. Along with almost everything else they taught you in kindergarten, this is another thing which is absolutely wrong. Frek the Gra, if the lakachti is the 4th lashon of Geula, then what's wrong with vehevesi? V'hoitzesi, v'hitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti, vehevesi. So you can say vehevesi is when Hashem brought us into Eretz Yisrael. That has nothing to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's why vehevesi doesn't. Well, says the Gra, do you know what v'lakachti is referring to? Does anybody know what did Rebbe Shalom mean when he said v'lakachti eschem li la'am? The Ramban says, "V'lakachti eschem li la'am, b'vayachem el Har Sinai." When you come to Har Sinai, the Sfarno says, "B'maimed Har Sinai." So says the Gra, the same way v'hevesi eschem has nothing to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim, v'lakachti has nothing to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim either. Therefore, v'hevesi is out, v'lakachti is out. So what are the Dal Lashonos shel Geula? V'hoitzesi, v'hitzalti, v'ga'alti eschem b'zroya netuya. 3, uv'shvatim gedolim 4. Okay, so you heard it here first. They didn't teach this to you when you were in yeshiva, but says the Gra, it's wrong. V'lakachti is out. Because v'hevesi is out, v'lakachti has to be out. However, there are Rishonim that say v'lakachti is in. So that we have to differentiate between why is v'lakachti in and v'hevesi out. Okay? Got it? You hear what we're trying to do? We want to know. The Gra has revolutionized the Dalet Koisas, because the Gra says if a Hevesi is out, V'lakachti is out. Hevesi is Eretz Yisrael has nothing to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim. V'lakachti has nothing to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim either. But there has to be a way to explain those opinions who say, no, in fact, V'lakachti is in. Why would V'lakachti be in and Ve'evesi be out? Okay.
Does it have a halachic ramification?
I think it does. I think one of the ramifications will be whether you could be Moisef ala Koisais. Okay? Okay. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Emor, that we learned on Shabbos, we spoke about the Yomim Tovim, right? It's the Parsha of the Mayadim. Eile Mayadei Hashem Kodesh Hashugoyos HaMayadim V'yidaber Moshe Mayadei Hashem B'nei Yisrael. What Yomim Tovim do we speak about? I don't know. Very simple. Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. In fact, the Rekech says what follows Sukkot, immediately following Sukkot is Shemen Zayizach, Remes Chanukah. Then right after that is Ve'asisa Shulchan, that's a reference to Purim. So all the Yomim Tovim are included. The question is, asks Rashi, that the Parsha begins, Sheshes Yomim Tavoid. Work for 6 days, Ve'yom HaShvi Tishbais, rest on Shabbos. Hey, Shabbos is not a Moed, Shabbos is not a Yom Tov. Why is Shabbos injected in the Parsha of the Moedim? Says Rashi, what's Shabbos doing there? To tell you, anyone who's Mechalo Shabbos, it's Kilo you're Mechalo all the Shabbosos, and anyone who's Mekayim, the Moedim is considered as if you're Mekayim all the, anyone who's Mechalo Yom Tov, it's like you're Mechalo Shabbos, and anyone who's Mekayim Yom Tov, it's Kilo you're Mekayim Shabbos. Somehow there's a connection between Yom Tov and Shabbos. If you're Mechalel Yom Tov, it's like you're Mechalel Shabbos. If you're Mekayim Yom Tov, it's like you're Mekayim Shabbos. Okay, another ha'ara. I will try to tie it together. The Sforno points out that every Yom Tov has its own Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimar. Except, so let's say for Shavuos, for Rosh Hashanah, for Yom Kippur, for Sukkot, the Sforno says, but the first Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimar includes Shabbos, Pesach, and Chag HaMatzos. They're all included in one. Now, Pesach is Chag HaMatzos, right? No, we've already said many times. Pesach is Erev Yom Tif, and Chag HaMatzos is what we call Pesach. So Shabbos, Pesach, Chag HaMatzos are all in one Vayidaber. Why? All three were commanded Koydem Matan Torah. So therefore, they so to speak, they just get one Vayidaber for all, because they've already been stated. All the new Yomim Tovim that have not been stated before Matan Torah, they each get their own Vayidaber. Okay. Now we're going to point out something incredible. In the Parsha of the Mayadim, you know what else appears in the Parsha of the Mayadim? Sefiras HaOmer. Svartem lochem, Machos HaShabbos, Miyayim HaViyach, Shabbos. What in the world are the days of Sefira doing in the Parsha of the Mayadim? Days of Sefira are not Yom Tif. It's just it's a mitzvah of counting. Why would you insert the mitzvah of counting the Omer in the Parsha of the Mayadim? What's it doing there? It's a nice mitzvah that we do for 49 days. But these days should not be injected in the Parsha of the Mayadim.
Some say there's a connection between Pesach and Shavuos. It's really one long Yom Tov.
Okay, good. So that's the first clue. The first clue is why are the days of Sefira in the Parsha of the Mayadim, which leads us to flush out this idea that these days must be special days, otherwise they would not be included in Parshas Emor and the Parsha of the Mayadim. Now here's a very important, another clue. Another clue is, when it comes to Pesach, now what's the difference, does anybody know, between Parshas Emor and Parshas Pinchas? They both are Parsha of the Mayadim. Parshas Emor is the Parsha of Yom Tif, and Parshas Pinchas is the Parsha of Yom Tif. What's the difference? Emor is to tell you the mitzvahs of the Yom Tif, Pinchas is to tell you the Karbanos of the Yom Tif, right? Parshas Pinchas tells you what you're makriv on every day. In Parshas Emor, it doesn't say what to be makriv. It's not the Parsha of the Karbanos of the Mayid. Comes Pesach, and it says, for 7 days, look at number 4, V'hikraftem isha l'Hashem shivas yamim. All 7 days of Pesach, you're going to bring a carbon. So the question is, why all of a sudden, why is this week's Parsha going out of character and telling me what carbon to bring on Chol Hamoed Pesach? That should be reserved for Pinchas. Pinchas talks about the karbanos. This week's Parsha talks about the Yom Tif itself. Why does it mention that you're makriv a carbon on the Chol Hamoed of Pesach? Says the Sforno, L'haidia she'en Chol Hamoed chol lagamri. You know why? It's merely to teach you. It's not trying to tell you what carbon to bring, to know what carbon to bring per se. It's reflecting on the unique status of Chol Hamoed Pesach. You know why it says you're makriv karbanos on Chol Hamoed Pesach? To tell you that Chol Hamoed is not Chol, it's Moed. How that's indicated by the fact that we're makriv karbanos on Chol Hamoed. Since there's a carbon sibor more than the carbon tamid, Mamela, it's like a mikra kodesh, and it's part of the chag. That's why it doesn't tell you how to bring the musaf, because that's not the kavan over here. It merely wants to indicate that the days of Chol Hamoed are in the Parsha of the Moyadim, because Chol Hamoed is also Moyed. So I heard a very beautiful diak from Rav Schlesinger in Muncie. If the reason why Parshas Emor goes out of character, and it tells you your makriv karbanos on Chol Hamoed Pesach, to tell you that the intermediary days of Pesach are Yom Tiv, that's the only reason it mentions that you bring a carbon. There's another carbon that the Parsha mentions. You know which other carbon the Parsha mentions? Carbon HaOmer. On the second day of Pesach, your makriv, the carbon HaOmer, and at that point, the carbon HaOmer triggers a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? Usfartem lachem mimachras haShabbos miyom haviyachem esomer atnufa sheva Shabbosos. So it means there's another carbon mentioned in Parshas Emor, the carbon of the Omer. And what does that carbon trigger? Sefira. So if there's a carbon HaOmer mentioned in this week's Parsha, and that carbon HaOmer triggers a counting, that means that carbon and the subsequent days of counting are part of the Moyadim, meaning the Yemei Sefira are Yemei Moyed. They're days of Yom Tif. What kind of Yom Tif? Probably analogous to the intermediary days of Pesach. The intermediary days of Pesach, between Pesach and Shavuos, are quasi Chol Hamoed days. In fact, if you look in the Ramban says it outright. The Ramban says befeirosh that the Chachmei HaEmes, meaning the Mekubalim, say that the same way Sukkos, you have 7 days of Sukkos, and you have Atzeres after. You have 7 days of Pesach. You have Atzeres Shavuos after, and the intermediary days are Chol Hamoed. So now we know exactly why the Yemei Sefira are mentioned in Parshas Emor, because Parshas Emor discusses all the Yamim Tovim on their various levels, whether it's a full-fledged Mikra Kodesh, whether it's a Chol Hamoed, or whether it's a quasi Chol Hamoed, being the Yemei HaSefira. I'll read to you the words of the Ramban. The Ramban says, V'al derech ha'emes, look at number 5, Siva b'chag ha'matzos shiva yamim b'kedusha lefneim. Hashem commanded Pesach 7 days of sanctity before, uli achreim, and after, ki kulam kadoshim ubesoichem Hashem. They're all holy, and God is in its midst. Meaning, from Pesach, umanu mimenu tisha v'arbaim yom, you count 49 days, shiva shavuos, kimei olam, 7 weeks, like the days of the world. And we sanctify the 8th day, like the 8th day of Sukkot. The hayamim hasfurim bein tayim kechuloi shel moed bein harishon v'hashmini b'chag. The counted days in between Pesach and Shavuos are analogous to Chol Hamoed, between the first day and the 8th day. So Ramban is saying that Al Pi Kabbalah, the days of Sefiras HaOmer are like Chol Hamoed. And this gives us an insight into why these days are mentioned in this week's Parsha.
Again, how are they connected to Chol Hamoed?
The same way Sukkot, there's 7 days, followed by Atzeres. Pesach, there's 7 days, followed by 7 weeks, followed by Atzeres, followed by Shavuos. So it means the intermediary days between Pesach and Shavuos are somewhat like Chol Hamoed. That's what it's doing in this week's Parsha, because these days have a quality of Yom Tov to them. They have some quality of Yom Tov to them. Now, I just want to, the last segment, I just want to explain what type of Yom Tov is Chol Hamoed. Is the Yemei HaSefira. What type of Yom Tov is it? Is it a regular Yom Tov? What's the quality of these days?
Even though it doesn't have a carbon on each day, it's considered...
Even though it doesn't have a carbon, but, it's mashma in the Rambam, Hilchos Tmidim Musafim. The Rambam puts Hilchos Sefiras HaOmer in Hilchos Tmidim Musafim, which would indicate that the mitzvah of counting is linked to the carbon. That means part of the Hakravas HaKarban is counting.
Right, and that's
So
really
the-
we'll set it.
Okay, so that means there's...
Carbon, 'cause each count,
Right, so that means the every day of counting is part of the Hakravas HaKarban. In fact, Reb Chaim, now the Rambam is one of the only Rishonim, not the only, but one of the few Rishonim who says Sfira B'zman Hazeh is D'oraisa. How could that be if the Rambam holds counting is part of the bringing of the carbon? So the Brisker Rav has a chiddush that it's part of the ability to bring a carbon, and we still have the ability to bring carbonis today. For technical reasons, we don't. But the Rambam Shita is Afal Pi Shabayis Charev Mikol Makom Makrivim Kol HaKarbanos Kulam. So it's dependent on the ability to bring a carbon, which we still reserve.
On the surface of it, by contemporary practice, it would seem that Sefiras HaOmer is a very, very, very low-level Yom Tov, because we have Minhagei Avelis throughout the time period. Certainly Minhagei Avelis are not observed on Yom Tov.
So I'll tell you a chiddush that I'm really reserving for next year. I'll give you a little heads up. You ready? All the Achroinim, including the Chassam Sofer, do not understand Lag BaOmer. What are you celebrating? The fact that people stop dying because they're all dead. What are you celebrating? The fact that it's Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's yahrzeit. Last time I checked, the yahrzeit is a fast day. What's the celebration of Lag BaOmer? And Chassam Sofer says, I have no idea. Chassam Sofer says, I don't know. You want to hear a lumdus? Listen to this. It's from Ramesha Shapiro. No. Every day of Sefiras HaOmer is be'etzem Yom Tov, because of everything we just learned. Elamai, when the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva died, it was mahapech the Yom Tov into Avelos. Nepach mi Yom Tov liyagoin va'anacha. But that's the days that they died. The days they didn't die, it retains its original status of Chol Hamoed. So you know what Lag BaOmer is? Lag BaOmer is what Sefira should be, but was ruined. It's the one day of Sefira that retains its original quality.
the whole second half.
No, but I might say, it's hard to say that. Even because you shave because on Chol Hamoed, not allowed to shave. But Lag BaOmer, people have, they can take haircuts, they can shave.
Right. Oh, you mean why isn't it like Chol Hamoed?
If we're removing...
No. We're not. No, it's Ke'en. Nobody says it is Chol Hamoed.
Obviously not, but if it has that sort of connection...
Oh, so you say why is there no Isser Malacha?
Yeah, why isn't there a minhag to at least refrain from
Ah,
a haircut on Lag
The
BaOmer
answer
itself?
is there is ancient. The original minhag was not to do. Let me show you a Torah. It's a Torah. Okay, look at number 11. Yes, for all Sefira, it's a Torah. The Torah says during the Shas Sefira, you're not allowed to do malacha. Now I want to explain this. The time that you're allowed to count. Yeah. Let me just see. I want to explain what type of Yom Tov are the Yemei Sefira. It's different than a regular Chol Hamoed. If you notice, please look at number 6. In number 6, the pasuk says, what do we count in Sefira? Usfartam lachem imachras haShabbos miyayim avayachim esomer hatzanufa sheva Shabbosais. 7 Shabboses. When do you start counting? Mimachras haShabbos, from the day after Shabbos. From the day after Shabbos. So there's a famous pshat in Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. The Bnei Yissaschar says it. The Chidah says it. Why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? The Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos Hagadol. Why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? Because we know that Tzedaikim made a very big mistake. The Tzedaikim said that when do you start counting Sefiras HaOmer? From a Sunday, right? Mimachras HaShabbos, from the day after Shabbos. And they always count Sefira beginning on a Sunday, and that's why their holiday of Shavuos is always on a Sunday. But they're wrong, because Mimachras HaShabbos refers to what? Pesach. Pesach is called the Shabbos. To indicate, says Rosh Hashanah, that Pesach is also called the Shabbos, we call the Shabbos before Pesach Shabbos Hagadol. Pesach is then Shabbos, regular Shabbos HaKatan, and the Sefira is kicked off from Pesach. In other words, we call the Shabbos before Pesach Shabbos Hagadol to indicate that Pesach is also a Shabbos. But think about how the mitzvah of Sefira is set up. You start counting from the day after Shabbos. What do you count? Sheva Shabbosos. 7 almost. It doesn't say Sheva Shavuos. It says Sheva Shabbosos. Think about that. Sheva Shabbosos. Why are the 7 weeks that we count as Sefiras HaOmer called Sheva Shabbosos? It's very interesting. Look in the Torah. The Torah writes that I found an ancient custom. Now, we don't have this minhag anymore. I don't think people could handle this. But the ancient custom was not to do malacha from Pesach until Shavuos, from Shkia until the morning.
Otherwise, how would you actually harvest the Omer?
Well, it's even Doicha Shabbos, so certainly it will be Doicha. Why? The first pshat is because the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva died during that time, and they were buried after Shkia, and during their burial, nobody was working. Therefore, they were geyser not to make any simcha at all during those days, and not to do, and women adopted not to do malacha in the nighttime. I don't even think women do that. Says the Torah, Va'oid, we count Sefiras HaOmer after Shkia, Uchsiv Sheva Shabbosos, Shabbosos, Milashon Shvus, V'lashon Shmita, meaning Isser Malacha. You hear this Torah? The Torah said 1,000 years ago, nobody did malacha, nothing to do with Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. Stam, because the Torah says it's Shabbos. It's Shabbos.
Or during the day.
It's only during the Zman Sfira. Usfardim Lochem, you're counting Sheva Shabbosos. So only when you're counting it Shabbos do you create it as Shabbos.
But why only at night?
Yeah, the Torah doesn't seem to say that it's like Hamoed.
It's a lashon of Shavuos, resting.
But
It's
why
a lashon
why only at night?
No, because the count is creating a status of Shabbos. You can only do it when you count. You can only count from Shkia until the morning. So at the Zman that you're able to create this Zman of Shabbos, I want to show. So what are we seeing from here? That what's the quality of these days? Is it a Yom Tov Dika Chalamayid? It's a Shabbos Dika Chalamayid. When do we ever have a Shabbos Dika Chalamayid? Answer is never. It's the only time of year. There's something called a quasi Yom Tov, and there's something called a quasi Shabbos. These 49 days are quasi Shabbosos. Let me give you 2 more proofs, and then I'll let you go home, if you behave. Okay, it's a Mishnah. Just joking. It's a Mishnah. The Mishnah in Idyar says, how long are Rishaim in Gehenim? So we just learned the Gemara, there's Gemara in Tainus. It says that Gan Eden is 60 times the size of the world, and Gehenim is 60 times the size of Gan Eden. So somebody once asked me, why does Gehenim have to be so big? Everything's out of necessity. That's the answer. Because most people, the Gemara says, Gan Eden is it like a Yud. Hashem created Olam Haba with a Yud. Why? Not so many people. Not so many people. But anyway, how many days are Risham put in Gehenim? So the Mishnah says in Idyos, 12 months. Shenemar, v'hayam midei chodesh b'chodshai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, mina Pesach v'yad ha'atzares, from Pesach till Shavuos. Shenemar, right here, this is that last pasuk in Yeshaya. It's talking about the Risham being trampled on in Gehenim. The Tanna Kama says Risham are for 12 months, like it says midei chodesh b'chodshai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, how long are the wicked in Gehenim for? 40 from Pesach till Shavuos. Shenemar umidei Shabbos b'Shabbatoi. Okay, if I would have read the pasuk Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, I would have said Risham ar Gehenim for a week. How do you see that Risham ar Gehenim between Pesach and Shavuos? Because the pasuk says midei Shabbos b'Shabbatoi. Says about Tenura, it doesn't mean they're in Gehenim between Pesach and Shavuos. It means they're in Gehenim for 49 days. Risham are only in Gehenim for 49 days. Why? Because what are the Yemei Sfira called? Sheva Shabbosos. Therefore, if the Navi says midei Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, that means Risham ar Gehenim for Shabbosos, which is 49 days. So another very clear proof that the quality of these days are, it's a Shabbos Dika Chalamayid. It's not a Yom Tov Dika Chalamayid. It's not a quasi Yom Tov, it's a quasi Shabbos.
Yeah, there's no Avelis in Shabbos.
Okay, but if the Torah uses the words midei Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, you would have thought that means a week's time. Why would it have anything to do with Sefiras HaOmer? apparently, if the words Shabbos refer to the Zman of the year, which is referred to as Shabbos, which is Yimei Sefira. And then I'll read to you one Rav Shamshin Fal Hirsch, and we'll wrap it up. Rav Hirsch wants to know, why does it say Usfartem Lachem Sheva Shabbos? It should say Usfartem Lachem Sheva Shavuos. The answer is, Shavua is just a 7-day period. A Shabbos is also a 7-day period. But it's not 7 days, it's 7 days borne out by Shabbos. Meaning what we're counting is 7 cycles created by the Shabbos. These Shabbos of the year produce weeks that have the character of Shabbos, more than any other time of the year. The rest of the year, yes, Shabbos influences the week. But these weeks, Shabbos gives birth to the week. The weeks of Sefiras HaOmer are Shabbosdik weeks. They're weeks that are somewhat of a Yom Tif. What's the Yom Tif of these weeks? It's a Yom Tif of Shabbos. There's an inyan not to do malacha at night. We don't practice that anymore. But it affects the quality of the day. Therefore, as an introduction to the Parsha of the Mayadim, not only is Yom Tif mentioned, but what's the introduction to the Parsha of the Mayadim? Shabbos. Why? Because Shabbos also affects Mayed. Where does Shabbos affect Mayed? These weeks of the year, Shabbos affects the Mayed. Okay, so let's just end off with one idea. And that is, we asked the question, the Vilna Gaon's question, which because of his question, he rejected the simple interpretation of Dalet Kosos. The Gra says if the Hevesi is out, Velakachti is out. If bringing Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael is not one of the Dalet Kosos, then why is Maimon Har Sinai one of the Dalet Kosos? The answer is, why did Hashem take us out of Mitzrayim? He didn't take us out to bring us to Eretz Yisrael. That's an added benefit. He took us out of Mitzrayim. V'zeh l'cha ha'ois, ki ani nochi shalachticha, v'yitzias ha'ami Mitzrayim, tavdon es Elokim al harazeh. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim in order to give us the Torah. What's the proof? The proof is there's one Yom Tif. You know what the Yom Tif is? Pesach, Sefiras, Shavuos. Is one long Yom Tif. Because the tachlis of the first 7 days are to count the 49 days of Shabbos to achieve Matan Torah. The Hevesi is out because the Hevesi is unconnected to Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's ultimately, we're very appreciative of the fact that Hashem gave us Eretz Yisrael, but it's not inherently linked to Yetzias Mitzrayim. But Maimon Har Sinai is inherently linked. The Velakachdi is the purpose of V'haitzesi v'yitzalti v'ga'alti was in order to be Velakachdi. This is indicated by the fact that while Pesach is its own Yom Tif and Shavuos is its own Yom Tif, nevertheless, in one dimension, the same way Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres is one long Yom Tif, Pesach and Shavuos is one long Yom Tif, linked by the Yimei Sefira, which is a quasi Chol Hamoed. What's the quality of the Chol Hamoed? It's not a Yom Tif tika Chol Hamoed, it's a Shabbos tika Chol Hamoed.
What does that mean? Like, because it's a Shabbos tika Chol Hamoed, what does that
What does that mean? So we saw there was an ancient custom of not doing malacha.
I get that, but
What is our avodah during this time of the year? Well, that means to adapt the lessons of Shabbos into the whole week. You know, one of them is, very briefly, this is a time of the year that the mun began to fall, right? So the lesson of Shabbos, when the mun ceases, is not to be worried about one's livelihood, realizing it's all biyad Hashem. Right? The halacha is that herhurim are mutarim. You're allowed to think about work on Shabbos. Right? Right? V'daber davar, dibur asar, herur mutar. But Rabbeinu Yonah writes, even though thinking about malacha is mutar, but you're not to become tarud in your thoughts. If you're tarud in your thoughts, that's inappropriate. That means it's a lack of faith that Hashem has everything under control. So during this time of the year, this is the time of the year that the mun fell. We adopt the lessons of Shabbos, the lessons of bitachon, and the Torah is only given to those who have the faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom that riboy hishtadlus does not add to my bottom line. That we go to work and we put in our efforts and we realize that just allows the bracha to be chal. But at the end of the day, it's the blessing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And during these days, we should have an extra degree of peace of mind that we're beyond HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we should all be zoicha, masai avay ve'ira pnei Elokim. Yeshkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.